Welcome to Dangerfield Sunday Prescription.
Okay, and a nice one, and I apologise that this week's Sunday Prescription is a little late, and that's because, not because I'm lazy, no, not because I'm busy, no, that's because I am in the Big Apple, that's right, we have come to New York, and we've done it at the last minute. We are on 42nd and 3rd, we're just above that all-night deli there that sells, you know what they call the finger food, not fucking likely, I'm in Soho. Okay? I'm in Soho. I've just had a lot of shister on, just had stuff to do. How are you? How are you getting on with your life? Why don't you do a fucking podcast? Fucking stress this thing is. Every week, some bloke wrote to me today, went, I honestly thought you were dead. Where's the podcast? Which was nice. And that message came from Richard Griffiths, who, he feels he achieved fame in the BBC 10, reality TV show The Call Centre, and you can find that if you dig your hand right to the bottom of the barrel. It'll be under your nails, but no, not dead, just dying like the rest of you. Speaking of death, I'll tell you what you've got to watch. You've got to watch everyone's favourite Special Forces murderer, Bear Grylls. Go onto YouTube and type in Bear Grylls Honey. If you haven't already seen it, it's well worth a watch. Bear Grylls, if you don't know, is sort of handsome, sexy Special Forces, ex-Special Forces. Sorry, I've got the Millennium Falcon driving past. Okay. And obviously, you know, this man has been dropped behind enemy lines and sort of cut people's throats in the dark of Afghanistan and whatever these people get up to. When they're saving us from the Muslims. And he now does TV shows where he shows himself wandering around deserts and eating ants' bums for sustenance and that. And there's one that you'll see, Bear Grylls Honey, where he finds this like beehive and he sort of, you know, talks to the camera going, you know, sometimes you can get yourself a bit of shit. He's a bit more public school than that. He's a bit more, I can't even do the impression. What is it? It's like, sometimes, which is much the same as what I just said. But anyway, it's Bear Grylls and he's talking about honey and getting hold of it. And he sort of puts this sort of, holds his cloth over his, what's his cloth? I don't know what his cloth is. Holds a bit of his shirt or something over his face and he fiddles around to get out a chunk of the beehive and he eats it and he's like, you know, this could give me the energy to get me back to safety. And then one of the bees, you see it on his eye, like on his eyebrow, and he just sort of wipes it away and goes, oh, got a little one there. And it's funny because he goes, oh, got a little one there. And all kind of cute because his name's Bear. It's obviously not, it's probably something like Frederick, but because he calls himself Bear, he goes, oh, bears like honey, which is really funny because as it carries on, that bee that was on his brow bites him and he goes, oh, I think I've got a little bite there, and he gets the cameraman to pull it out, and then the next shot his head is like an inflated beach ball. He looks like he's got a touch of Downs all of a sudden. He's got these two sort of slitty eyes and his big expanded forehead. These Special Forces, all that training, all that fucking hardness, and he was brought to the ground by the little prick of a bee. So have a look for that. Bear Grylls Honey, YouTube. Brilliant. I'll tell you what I thought of this week. I went to a state comp and I had to sing hymns. Yeah, and hymns are weird things because what they are actually is musical prayers, aren't they? That would make a good game, wouldn't it? Not musical chairs, musical prayers. You all go, how would that work? You all go into a room and everyone starts sort of going, God, I love you, God, I love you. And whoever loves God the least gets shot until there's one person left with a musical prayer that works. Sorry about the toilet flushing in the background. My missus likes to have absolutely no respect for my craft, and she is doing whatever she can to put me off because I haven't given her enough attention. Those bloody fucking women. Go and paint your nails or whatever it is you do when you're not cooking me dinner. And she's walked in with her trousers around her ankles, and that's not good. Get away, I'm busy.
He taught me how to
I'm
do
busy.
it.
Go away. Do whatever you're doing. Come on. Right, so hymns. I'll tell you what, at our school, what was great is on our hymn books, on the front of the hymn book, it obviously said hymn book, but it doesn't take much to scratch away a bit of the print so that it said hymn fuck. So every single book said hymn fuck on it, which is brilliant because I'd rather hymn fuck than musical prayers. What an odd thing. There was never a moment when we got to that school, when we were tiny, young brains ready to just absorb information and trust that information, where they said, oh, look, you're actually going to be worshipping God with these songs. That didn't happen. It was just, you have to sing this. And if you didn't, you got punished. So it was enforced prayer. You know, we get all funny in the West about these Muslims and the way they treat their children and all that. And these, you know, all these other religions are ugly. But we have got some awful, insipid religious ideas. The idea that kids just turn up at school and get punished if they don't sing prayers. And it's not optional either. It wasn't like, if you don't want to sing prayers and worship the Lord God, the Jesus, Son of God and Christ and Holy Trinitoid, you know, you just have to do it. He who would valiant be gainst all disaster, let him in constancy follow the Master. There's no discouragement shall make him once relent his first avowed intent to be a pilgrim. Look at that, man. That is like 36 years later, and I can still remember that cack. I didn't know what it meant then. I don't know what it means now, but it's fucking ugly, and it shouldn't be made. You shouldn't be made to sing that shit. It's a worship. It's not only worshipping a god. It's not only deism. It's theism, and it's fucking ugly. What's that other nonsense? What is it? The Lord's, sing along, you know how it goes, ready? 2, 3. The Lord's, come on, you know it, right? Do it because you know it, and we'll both see how odd this is, that we've got this shitster in our head, ready? I'll count you in. 2, 3, it's a waltz, you see. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, Lord's, mate, that didn't help you, did it? Ready, let's start again. Ready? The, oh, Superman, Hi, I'm not in right. And you remember that? Laurie Anderson, oh, Superman. Give that a quick quang on the old YouTube. This is a bit of a YouTube podcast, isn't it? I'm relying on that huge resource of YouTube to give you some interest. But that, oh, Superman, what was that, 78, 79? I can remember when that came out. Really quite an odd song amidst all the, what else did you have? It was all disco around that time. D-I-S-C-O. And it's D-I-S-C-O. And you've got all that. Don't blame it on the sunshine. Don't blame it on the moonlight. Don't blame it on the good times. Blame it on the boogie. I don't know what we were blaming, but I wasn't going to blame it on the sunshine. Never. Always like the sun. Born in May, you see. But amongst all that discotheque, suddenly, you had Laurie Anderson, quirky yank with spiked hair, head slightly wider than it was long, huge eyes, ha, 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 oh, Superman, ha, 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 Mum and Dad, but got some really dark lines in it as well. What is it? What's that bit? This is the hand, ha, 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 the hand that takes. Oh, I don't like that kind of shister. Makes me feel kind of cold. But where were we? Let's go back. Hymn, fuck, and singing. Oh yeah, ready? The Lord's my shepherd. Ready? 2, 3. The Lord's... Right, if you've got a lover or a child or a parent in the room, stare at them. Make them uncomfortable. I'll tell you what. When we were kids, we had a German exchange. My brother was quite good at languages. He can speak 7. Hasn't managed to say sorry in any of them, though. But we had a German kid over called Jan. What a surprise. Not Mesut, Jan. Mesut would be Turkish, but you know what I mean. Ja, Gunners, ja! But he had Jan over, and I just thought it would be good to sing at Jan. Really awkward and uncomfortably, just look him in the eyes and sing. And I opted for, oh, the grand old Duke of York, he had 10,000 men. He marched them up to the top of the... I can't remember the rest. And Jan didn't like that. Jan ended up crying, I think, on the second day, and we had to send him home early back to the Blitzkrieg or wherever it was he fucking come from. I'm getting very lost here. You can see... Hang on a minute. Can you shut up? Can you make less noise? Or could you possibly make more noise?
You want me to make your dinner?
Just shush. What is all this plastic? Jesus Christ. It's going to sound like I'm broadcasting this from... Hello, this is Bayswater Radio. Right, good. Good. Get the fucking food ready and keep it down. Sorry about that. It's always you involve a woman and things go downhill. So where were we? D-I-S. The Lord's my shepherd. See how my brain works, or should I say how my brain doesn't? Oh. Right, just no more plastic. Can you do that? Yeah.
I was just thinking.
Just no. Don't turn it into a thing. Just shush.
Right.
Just work with natural fibres, natural fabrics. More plastic. Right. Sorry about that. She's Oriental, isn't she? Don't know what. Can't see it. Don't know her ass from her elbow.
Fuck off.
Okay, so ready? We're going to sing this fucking song. Right, the Lord's my shepherd. Ready? Oh, Lord's my shepherd. Right. The Lord's my shepherd, I'll not want. He maketh me down to lie in pastures green. He leadeth me the silent waters by. Now, at 5 years old, the Lord my shepherd certainly was not. At 43, he's definitely not. Whose shepherd was the Lord? Are we the sheep? Is that what that? Is it that clear? Is that ugly theology that transparent? The Lord's my shepherd, which means he's either looking after my sheep, or I am the sheep of his shepherding. Neither of which I think is a good thing. Cack, absolute cack to have to sing hymn fucks at school. It's ugly stuff. I'll tell you what does interest me. Going out of a child a third of my age for sexual favours and calling it a girlfriend, it leads to some very interesting things, because I get to find the difference. But shush, just shush. This isn't yours. Shut it.
I'm not a child.
Shut it. Okay, that's how you treat a lady. Let me tell you. I know the skills. I got the skills for her to pay the bills. Right. So I get to find out the changes in education. I'll tell you what does me. Do you remember getting the cane and getting whipped? I'll tell you this one. When I was in primary school, we had this headmaster called Mr. Wallace. And if you'd done anything wrong, such as didn't sing your musical prayers to the Lord, you'd have to go to his office. Now, this old fat fuck was about 50, 60 years old, horrible, overweight, kind of had these braces that just left sweat marks where there wasn't enough breathing between his fat, flabby tits and the material. And when they moved, you'd see where the braces were by this sort of wet lines. A horrible bloke. He had like disgusting creamy white yogurt-like foam around the sides of his mouth. It's not hard to just move that stuff. You don't let it build up and wait for someone to say, "Oh, careful, you're growing cheese around your gob." Horrible man. So you refuse to sing your musical prayers, and it'd be like, "You got to go and see Mr. Wallace." Now you'd get there. Now bearing in mind you're 6, 7, 8 years old. You're a tiny little child. You'd get to his room. He wouldn't ask what you'd done. Go, so you've been in trouble, have you, boy? And you'd be sort of just thinking, well, I don't know, I just didn't sing the prayers. But you wouldn't say that, or I'd punch you in the face or something. And then it would be the old touch your toes. And sometimes there'd be 3 or 4 of us lined up, and it was weird, because even as young children, we knew that it was sexual. We knew that there was this sort of understanding that there was something really dark going on here that really shouldn't be going on. And they'd go touch your toes, and then he'd smack you with his bare hand across the room, because it's not hard for a grown man to push a child across the room. But I'll tell you what was hideous about it. When he made contact with your ass, because he was a dirty old bastard trying to get some information for his wank bank so he could choff it out later, he didn't just smack you so you flew across the room. He made sure he grabbed a bit of your little young arse. Do you know what I mean? So he'd get a handful and then sort of push you away. Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure on a couple of occasions I felt his finger sort of creep up trying to get a sniff of my little rusty trombone. It was awful. And what a horrible thing. And that didn't stop. As that progressed, as you got older, when you got to the age where they knew you were likely to go home and say, "Excuse me, but the headmaster keeps touching my anus." So then they went for the ruler on your knuckles. Do you remember that? You had to put your hand out and they'd crack down on your knuckles, and depending on how much of a hideous Caligula type teacher you had was how much he angled the ruler. And I remember one would just go for the full-on 90 degrees edge of ruler, crack into your knuckles. Now, I can't do that. I could not do that. I'd have trouble doing that to someone I hated. I'd have trouble doing it to an adult. But could you bring a ruler down on a child's knuckles? Even flat, let alone on the side. Could you? Have you got that in you? And bearing in mind, these are people that you like to think they went into the profession to teach. And I mean, there is an argument there that they are teaching you something, that the world is full of arseholes and you're going to get hurt for no reason. But come on, that's a long shot. These people, maybe they got so corrupted by the system or life itself that they just thought, the little bastard, he needs a good rap over the knuckles. You know, that weird sort of old English mentality of, you know, a bit of national service would sort them out. No, it wouldn't. A decent education, some food and some semblance of a life might sort them out. Making them go and kill people for a couple of years just because they happen to reach 16, I don't think would sort them out. And of course, then in secondary school, it went to the cane, which was a piece of cane. In my school, it was a bamboo piece of cane, and when that broke, which it occasionally did, and they'd run out of spares, and they did have spares. I remember the headmaster had my headmaster of the Downs, Mr. Hayhurst, who incidentally I think ended up doing a hit and run on some child and ended up getting locked up. I'll have to follow that up, not sure, but an absolute lunatic he was. He had a cupboard of spare canes, and when they did run out, they'd just use a meter stick. But again, touch your toes and they'd whip your ass. Now, does it have to be your ass? You know, this whipping, this slapping. Going back to infant school, I remember Mrs. Goff, if you misbehaved, and again, it was so arbitrary because it was based on their sexual requirements rather than a need for discipline. I mean, I remember once I was in the sand pit, and I got out of the sand pit, and I brushed the sand off my legs outside of the sand pit. And apparently that warranted her stopping the whole class, getting me on her knee, pulling my trousers and pants down and slapping my bare naked ass. Now, what is the arse for? Why the arse? It can only be sexual. I mean, your thighs, your face, your head, there's plenty of options. Soon as you involve an older person making physical aggressive contact with your ass, it's kind of apparent, isn't it, what's going on here? Dirty bastards. But apparently it doesn't happen anymore. Apparently if you whisper at a child, you lose your job. Maybe for the better. Who knows? Of course, there was the occasional wrongdoing that didn't get punished. I'll tell you a classic one. We used to bunk school in the lofts. I mean, it was an old Victorian building, and it really was. You know, this is only going back, 25, 30 years. We had desks that had a space for the inkwell and a little groove for your quill. No shit, this was where I went to school. These crazy Victorian buildings. Anyone who knows that school, which isn't there anymore, good, will tell you this. It was insane. You had these sort of shut down desks and always getting people's heads in them and had fingers in them. I mean, the kids were just as violent as the teachers. I wonder why. We had one metalwork teacher called Mr. Harrison who, if you misbehaved, they'd just throw a lump of metal at you. Absolutely would. No exaggeration. He'd have like a file in his hand, and of course anyone who is familiar with metalworking will know there's a bastard file, and so you'd always go up to him and go, Mr. Harrison, bastard file. And if he cottoned on to the fact you were just calling him a bastard, he'd just throw it at you across the room, a lump of sharp metal towards a child. Funny and almost deadly. So in this old Edwardian school, of course, you had not Edwardian, we just lost 50 or 100 years, I don't fucking know, didn't have the education, too busy being spunked up the arse and whipped with bastards. But we had Victorian lofts, and we found the loft hatch, and we'd go up there and just hang around in them. And weirdly, it was more boring than the classes, because at least at the classes you had other people and you could make a little bit of noise. But the feeling that you were sort of being naughty and you were, you know, ducking something hideous and having a few choices and options made going up in the lofts good. But it was a lot of creeping around and a lot of squatting. If you heard a noise, you weren't sure if one of the teachers had stuck their head up. And I remember once I'd been squatting there for so long, I said to my mate Mark, I was like, man, I need a shit. And he was like, you can't shit. I said, I've got to have a shit. And so I just pulled my trousers down and done this shit. And of course, because there was no distance, there was no there was no droppage, shall we say. It didn't get the chance to break off, so I just sort of shuffled along a few foot as it come out, and I laid myself a nice line of turd, and it was there for ages. And in the end, I can't remember, but I think I put lighter fluid on it and set fire to it. Then there's all kind of dramas and smoke and shit, and then one of the tutors did put their head up the hatch, and they were like, "We know you're up there." So we've all sprinted, because there was another hatch at the other end, and it's like, you're going to get in serious trouble for this. So we've run down the other end, and my memory tells me there was smoke billowing, but I can bullshit. I can lie. And we're all running down this. I remember my mate Mark. We're all running on the wooden bits, the bits that make up the architecture of the loft, rather than the half-inch thick plasterboards that make up a very flimsy roof. And it's hard to run when you're having to go along like a bit of 2x4, mates. Stick a bit of 2x4 down there, but we're sort of, almost tiptoeing, running along them, and there's a little bit of each child for himself, and so you're sort of trying to get out. Fuck, I don't care who gets caught. I can't risk this. My old man will go mental. And Mark has realised, after bunking school up there for 6 whole months, that no, you don't have to run on the wood, the beams. You can actually run on the... And of course, you can't run on the half-inch plasterboard. So one of his legs has just gone... And the plasterboard's gone all the way up to his bollocks. So his legs are like right angles to each other. And he's got one leg... outright, and it looks like he's got one leg and that his other one's fallen off, and he's going, help, help, help. And we were really worried that his leg had gone through into a class downstairs, and I swear blind that he was being yanked. Maybe they put a lot of books on a desk and stood on it and were pulling his leg from down below. And we're sort of yanking him out, and of course he's come up and he's got all this plaster down his leg and dust, and it's ripped his trousers. And then we're running along, and of course, because he's a little bit sort of confused, and he's worried about what his mum's going to say about his trousers and the fact that he's basically made a hole in his classroom roof. He then smashes clear into this beam with a little bit, what is it, they put that sort of metal edging on beams, and he's crashed his nose. I might have mixed a couple of stories together here, but the point's the same. He's now a wreck, and they call an emergency assembly because obviously they're worried about kids setting fire to shit in lofts and falling through classrooms. And they call this emergency assembly, and they're like, "We know who have done this. We know the boys who've done this." And they say, if you confess, we will be more lenient on you. Obviously, they didn't have a fucking clue, and they wanted us to be idiots and go, "Yes, it was me. Please be lenient." Lenient? You were whipping my ass just 4 minutes ago. Fuck you, as if I'm going to grass myself up. But Mark is sitting there with like a big scab on his nose and one white leg covered in dust. And I'm thinking, well, if you don't know, you're fucking stupid, because there is a forensic study of those lofts in that young boy. Fucking brilliant. Fucking great times at school, though. That Mark, same bloke, he listens to this. Hello, mate. He was so advanced with understanding computers, and you've got to put yourself back there. I mean, this was computer science, and we had those Lynx computers. They were virtually mainframes, and you only had a green screen, and the software was Turtle. And if you put in a load of coordinates, you could draw lines. I mean, that's suicidal stuff. No wonder we all ended up on Tipex. But I remember once we were chatting away, and the tutor went, "Excuse me," he went, "Do you know all this, Mark?" Mark went, "Yeah." Yeah. And then the teacher thought he'd call him out, and he went, "Oh, you think you can take the class then, do you?" And Mark went, "Yeah." He went, "Go on then." So Mark just got up into the front of the old class and just went, "Yeah, well, look, they've overcomplicated it. This is how you do it, blah, 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 done." And the teacher just had to go, "Thanks, sit down." Super fun. I'll tell you what, though, I was notorious for having plops. I remember once we were playing hide and seek down in the woods, again, just bunking school. And again, I was squatting, again, I needed a poo, so I'd done it. And that's how they caught me, because I laid a good foot and a half, and they knew it was me. And because it was steaming, they knew I was nearby. I managed to get the nickname Logger for a good couple of years. That took a bit of time to shake. Not easy, especially when I also hung off a bridge and plopped into the river once, and we all saw them floating a few miles down, and Dangerfield's phantom floaters became a thing, and that wasn't good. But my mate Matt Bonnywell, rumour got round that he used to fuck chickens, and so that kind of, Dangerfield's phantom floaters was nothing compared with Matt Bonnywell's penis in a chicken story, so I got away with it. another one that Mark done. We used to bunk school a lot down the arcades, Trading Post, Dartford, Jumborama, remember that? And he decided that he was going to cut some pound coins. A pound coin had just come out, and he thought he could cut some using like a bar of steel, just get the lathe out, cut some pound coins, and of course we could go down, play the arcade games all day long, maybe sell them off for the gamblers and the fruit machines and that. So he's got this tube of metal. We broke into the metalwork department. And he's pulled this titanium lathe down, a couple of grams worth of kit, and he just went bang and pinged off and smashed through a window. Literally would have gone through a child's head, and we all just run out. And that reminds me, another fella that was there, David Bateman. David Bateman, hilarious bloke. We were in, where we go back to the beginning of the podcast when we get to, it was religious studies, which in the 1970s and 80s wasn't religious studies at all. It was Christian propaganda. And we had Miss Marden, known throughout the school as the Virgin Marden. And we were doing this class with her, and she made us read Proverbs, that book, the book in the Bible, Proverbs. And it's all nonsense like, I'm glad I don't know this stuff very well. I know the Lord's my shepherd, but stuff in the Bible. So in Proverbs it says things like, take the piss out of one of God's creatures, you might as well just be taking the piss out of God, which I think is quite good advice and makes God piss taking very easy. But so you'd have to sort of write a scene like, me and John were down in the arcade the other day, and John done a poo in his pants, and so we said, I'll tell you what, I've got to tell you the best poo in the pants story ever. There was a few of us, we went out camping, and one of my mates had a little bit of land, and that was unheard of because none of us had a bit of land or any gardens or anywhere you'd go camping. So we said, yeah, let's put a tent up. And the three of us were in this tent, and one of the blokes, another Mark, he shit his pants. And my mate Darren went, you can't stay in this tent with your shitty pants. And this Mark was like, I couldn't help it though, I'm only 11 and that sort of stuff happens. He didn't say that, but And Darren said to him, look, we've got a fire outside. If you burn your pants, you can come back in the tent. So this Mark took his pooey pants off, held them on a stick and held them over the fire. It was real Lord of the Flies, real Freudian content in that, isn't there? Burning your own shit. It reminds me of, what is it, the man who gets strung up and the bird comes down and pecks out its liver. It's all got that hideous Freudian content. But he's doing his sacrificial burning of his own ex-food as it ignites it over the fire. And then when he's finished, he went, can I come back in the tent now? And Darren went, don't be silly, you're the sort of bloke who burns his pants. Anyway, going back, Bateman, Proverbs, the Virgin Marden. So we had to write this story where we had to give actual examples of Proverbs. And David Bateman, now imagine, we're only like 12 years old, and he opened his shoot, the Virgin Marden, and went, okay, David, can you read yours out? And he went, yeah. And he went, I went down the road and my mate went, fuck off you cacker, you ugly cunt. And the whole class have just cracked up. I'll never forget it. Fuck off you cacker, you ugly cunt. Cacker in that little line is almost the most obscene because it isn't, because it's a bit sort of withheld, do you know what I mean? Cacker, fuck off you cacker, you're an ugly cunt. And the Virgin Marden, after she's managed to calm the class down, and this is the funniest thing ever, of course, we are in an absolute fits, and Bateman's just looking around the class. He doesn't know what he's done, he doesn't know why, because in a weird way he is proving what he is doing what he was meant to do. It's a good point. And the Virgin Marden went, oh, I'm glad you've done that, David. I'm glad you're like, fuck. Did she wake up that morning and go, oh, I really hope one of the boys in class strings out some obscenities which makes the class laugh his bollocks off for the rest of the hour? She went, I'm glad you done that, David, because I think it's important that we all know the best place to learn language is not from the toilet walls. She poked me out of the classroom once by putting her finger in my ear. I just had a mangosteen break. I know I've mentioned them before, and I don't want this to become a food and drink podcast, but if you've not had a mangosteen, fucking get some. You can buy them in Chinatown. I don't know where they sell them where you live. That would be ridiculous. The most amazing fruit. I could live on the fuckers. Let's have a look at the questions, and I thank you for your questions. Without the questions, I really wouldn't be able to take up the last 15 minutes of every week when I've got fuck all else to say. Let's go. Colin Simpsonsky says, what's the worst thing you've ever done in or to a hotel room? Jesus. Well, I have intentionally shit down the plug hole in 3 showers on 3 continents. That's not that bad, but it's not that good, is it? The worst thing I've done is well past the sharing on a podcast. There's legal ramifications there, Mr. Simpsonsky. Okay, David Von Jones says, what's your favourite place to visit and why? Well, now it's Cambodia because I just went there and I fucking loved it and it has trumped everywhere. I just had the most amazing time. And I'll tell you what, David Von Jones, be wary of favourites. Don't make the mistake of a favourite, because if you start having favourites, you're closing yourself off to newer, better and greater experiences. You're limiting yourself. You know, look, well, let's take it back to favourite colour. If you've got a favourite colour, you're never going to open yourself up to the chances that another colour in a different context is going to be better. And if you treat your entire life like that, you're in all sorts of trouble. Don't have favourites. So Cambodia is a favourite at the moment, but it's temporary and intentionally temporary. I will look to be improving upon it soon. Steve West says, why do birds suddenly appear every time you are near? Well, in answer to that, Steve West, I think, just like me, they want to be close to you. Peter Cope, who knows the Downs Comprehensive School very well, says, is a Samsonite suitcase the best for torso disposal, or will the cheaper Matalan type cases hold up to the job? Well, Pedro, you've made a mistake there, haven't you? Because you've said torso disposal, and what you actually mean is torso transportation, because everyone knows the best torso disposal is a pig farm. Those hungry fuckers will bite through bones like there's no tomorrow. Stick the body in a Samsonite, they might be munching for months, and you, my friend, are going to end up doing 10 years at the scrubs. Benjamin Krellin says, what is the pet you have loved the most? Well, that'll be my Staffy Chad, who died recently. Never have a dog again, man. Heartbreaking. William Van Leerop says, will you be attending next week's Dangerfield Sex Tourist gig? Well, I tell you, William Van Leerop, no, I won't, because it's not next week, it's the week after. It's actually the 27th of June at the Proud Archivist in Haggerston. Come along, please. I've got loads of industry people coming along to make me a star, and I need people in there to laugh at unfunny stories, otherwise it ain't going nowhere. So I won't be there next week, but I will be there the following week, and it's an extended set. Be about an hour and a half of the same story told very slowly. Michael Latanen says, when's the fucking book ready? And that is because Michael Latanen was a person I met out in Thailand, and all he saw me do was writing and writing and writing. And it will never be ready, Michael, because is a book ever ready, or is a publisher just ready to seize? Sherry Lorraine Brown says, why do men insist on having way too many man drawers? I have none.
You wear the same ones every week. You never wash them.
I have none, apparently, because I wear the same ones every week and I never wash them. So why the men in your life have so too fucking many man drawers, Sherry Lorraine Brown? Maybe because you're so lovely, they just want to make sure they're super clean for your love. Matt Johnson says, explain the link with drugs and music. No, Matt Johnson, you explain the link. There's no link. Connections exist if you make them, and if you break them, they don't. Alison Rogers says, why did you A, grow dreadlocks in your younger days, and B, ditch the dreadlocks?
Because he lost his hair.
Well, I grew them in my younger days because I thought I was some kind of urban psychedelic warrior, and I ditched them because nature took them from me. I probably wouldn't have them now, though, but I would have given them a few more years, in truth. But when you wake up with a couple on your pillow and your the scar that used to be well under your hairline is now visible in the middle of your forehead, it's time to take them off. There's nothing worse than that old scratter look, is it, where they've got long dreadlocks around the back but they're bald on top. No! Number one, go! Matt Bonnywell, who we mentioned earlier, fucking chickens, chicken fucker. I was his best man at his wedding. I'd done such a good speech. It was almost like he had the greatest comic ever, free of charge. It was so lovely, though. We were out in Ireland, Southern Ireland. It was fucking beautiful, really nice. Really nice, actually. An honour to be his best man, although I don't agree with marriage. Because who needs the God and the state involved in your lovemaking? Anyway, according to Christians... Oh, this is from a man who got married. According to Christians, we are made in God's image. So does God have a cock? What is this with my questions? It's always the same shit. According to Christians, we are made in God's image. So does God have a cock? If so, why? Is there no female God? Or another male one? And if he does, what does he do with it all day? You know, Matt Bonnywell, questions regarding the God cock are best left for the Pope, because I think in many ways, through all those bishops, the God cock is well active and we know what they've been doing. Francis O'Grady, do you enjoy your own reflection? If not, why not? You know what, Francis, good question. I'm not a fan of it. When I get my hair cut and they stick me in front of the mirror for an hour, I shut my eyes. Can't stand looking at myself for that long. Sometimes I like it. I like a nice photo, but I'm not that extreme. You know, sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. I think that's healthy, isn't it? Because anything else would be obsessive. David Bateman, look at that. Fucking cacker, you ugly cunt. Are you going to replace my pen, which Mr. Harris confiscated off you in the third year senior? There you go. It's been a school cast. It really has. No, I'm not, you cunt. Fucking ugly cacker. Julian Firth. He asks, the pen is mightier than the sword. Discuss. But what Julian Firth doesn't realise is he's put a little comma in there. So what he's actually said is, the pen is, comma, mightier than the sword. Discuss. So I'd discuss the comma, because what you've actually said, Julian Firth, is the penis, the pen is, the penis, mightier than the sword. And I think this is stuff you should be discussing with a professional psychotherapist. Okay, we're done. Don't forget to come to my fucking gig. Buy some fucking tickets. 27th of June, The Proud Archivist. Look it up on Google. Thanks for listening. It's been a ramble of nonsense, but that's why you keep tuning in. See you later. Much later.